I am about to blow your mind with how fast it is to create a teacher resource. A resource like this, if you're math, English, even for preschool. And I know you're going to be asking, what programs do you use? How do you make sure that you follow copyright and trademark laws? I'm going over all of it. It's all in this video. Let's get started. All right, so I'm going to show you how to make a cut and paste activity. Now, it doesn't have to be paste if you're like, I'm not doing glue. I get it. I'm a former teacher. I taught for 8 years. I taught high school, and even high schoolers struggle with glue. Okay, so there's lots of ways that you can do these activities in your classroom. So let me quickly go over that, and then we're going to dive into how to quickly create these. And you're going to be shocked at how fast it is. So you can go ahead and cut these out if you have littles who are struggling with cutting. However, that's a skill even in kindergarten, right? So that can be just another way to practice cutting. But if you're like, I don't have time for that, it's fine. Go ahead and cut these out. Put them in a little baggie, and then they can just sort them on this sheet. You can laminate this sheet if you would like. If you're like, I'm not even going to do cut and paste at all, then you can just have students write in the correct answer under each one. I like the cut and paste aspect of it because it just is something kinesthetic. It's a little bit different. They're working a different part of their brain while they are practicing math in my case. And I don't know, my students always really enjoy these. So let me just give you some other examples from different types of subject areas. So if you are science, you can match lab equipment, parts of speech, geography. So this type of resource is really about, kind of recalling definitions, unless it's math, and then they can actually work out the problem. You can even put like a smaller problem, like for example, where they're adding and subtracting here, or they're solving an equation. For all other subject areas, then it's mostly going to be recalling a definition or matching things, a word and a definition, parts of speech with the actual word, things like that. Here is another one. And then you can even do preschool, so beginning letters. You can even adjust this, especially if you have younger preschoolers like 4, then you can adjust this to not have so many on one page, just have 4. And again, you can cut those out for your preschooler if you would like, or let them practice cutting. It's okay if it takes a little bit more time. I think it's a great skill to learn. Okay, so now that you kind of see where we're going with this, let me tell you what program I use to create all of these. And that program is actually PowerPoint. Yes, Microsoft PowerPoint. It's probably already on your computer right now if you are a Microsoft user. If not, you can grab it for a relatively low price. Now, they have gone to a monthly subscription model, like everything, right? But it's, I believe, $8 a month. You want to make sure that you get the one with the desktop applications, not just the online version. So there's like a lower tier. The lowest price one is not the one you want. You want the second one above that. And that will allow you to download PowerPoint onto your computer, onto your desktop laptop. I wouldn't try this on an iPad. They don't work great on tablets, but desktop and laptop are fine. And then you can go ahead and open PowerPoint on your computer. I'm going to go ahead and open a new presentation. And let me just show you how easy this really is. So I'm going to drag it out here. Now, PowerPoint is a presentation tool. If you're an Office fan, you know what I'm thinking. You're a presentation tool when Michael says that to Ryan. Okay, so it's going to be in this presentation widescreen format. So you want to change it so that you can print it like a sheet of paper. So if you were in the US, that would be letter size. If you're in other countries, it might be A4 size. Either way, you want to change the slide size so that you can print it. So you're going to go to up here at the top, design, and then you're going to go to slide size, page setup, and just select either A4 or letter, whichever one works for your country. And I like to keep it in this landscape format. Now, I have added these little guidelines here. You don't have to have these, so I'm just going to delete them and then show you how I added them. So you can just right click and then add vertical guide under grid and guides, or add horizontal guide. It's up to you. It just kind of keeps me in the middle, keeps things nice and neat. I'm also going to go ahead and delete these text boxes because I don't need those. And then I have a fresh sheet of paper ready to go. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here to make sure that you can see. So next, what I'm going to do is add a place for students to put their name. And then depending on the grade level and the age, right, you can add the date and the period, but you can just put name. It's fine. It's whatever you normally do for your activities. So I'm going to insert a text box and just click to insert it. And then I'm going to go ahead and change the font to one of the fonts that I like. I like this Simple Sauber. I purchase fonts on teacherspayteachers.com. There's also other websites like Creative Market where you can purchase fonts. You want to make sure if you are going to sell this that you purchase a commercial use license. Okay. And of course I have some loud truck right outside while I'm filming this. Hopefully you can't hear it. Wow, that's really loud. It always happens. It'll be quiet all day as soon as I press record. Trash truck. I don't know. That sounds like a dump truck out there. Who knows? Okay, so name, date, period, or again, you can just put name. Next, you would add a text box for the title. If you just double click, it will also open a text box. So you can do it that way instead of going to insert text box. Okay, so I'm going to do the same font. All right, so I'm going to call this cut and paste activity, and then you can add whatever title you want for the subject that you're doing. So for example, if it's two-step equations, or if it's fractions, or if it's lab equipment. Now I have this in different fonts, so if you want to get fancy and play with different fonts, let me show you how I did that. So let's say I'm doing lab equipment cut and paste activity. So I'm going to just highlight that portion, and I'm going to pick that kind of thicker font. Oops. Not that one. And then cut and paste activity, I'm going to pick this kind of cursive font. Do be careful, especially with younger kids, with cursive and different types of fonts because they may not be able to read it. I never had issues in high school with that, but that's just something to consider. And then if you kind of drag it, you will see it will click into place when you're in the center. You'll see that red kind of dashed line appear. Okay, so the next text box that we want to add is for the directions. The directions are going to depend on what your cut and paste activity is about. So if it's about lab equipment, you can say at the bottom of the page, paste under the correct lab equipment picture or something like that. So you would adjust that to whatever makes sense for what you are creating. And you can kind of make that smaller. If you want to center it, you can, or if you kind of want to put it over to the left, you can do that as well. I typically put mine over to the left. Actually, no, those are all centered. Okay, so either way, it doesn't matter. Okie doke. Now we are going to use one of my favorite tools, and that is tables. Now you may be thinking, I love Canva, canva.com. If you've never heard of it, it's a fantastic free website. Although if you're going to use it for commercial use, you do need the pro version, but it has so many graphic design tools. But the one tool that they are lacking is tables. Their tables are no bueno. They are not easy to format and they drive me crazy. So that's why I don't typically use Canva for creating resources, as I use so many tables. There are other reasons as well. Maybe I'll make another video on that, but just to quickly touch on it, Canva has some weird terms of use, and I do not believe they are very clear. And I have been in groups of Teachers Pay Teachers sellers that have reached out to Canva asking questions to clarify their terms of use, and they get different answers depending on who answers that email. To me, that's a red flag, and it makes me a little bit nervous. And I have seen horror stories where Canva goes after people on Teachers Pay Teachers because it's a public platform and they can go on there and search, and they get all their resources taken down. So I want to be very, very careful and make sure that that's not going to happen to me. That's why I like PowerPoint. And then if I'm going to use fonts, or if I buy clip art, I make sure that everything I buy is for commercial use, including Microsoft. You want to make sure that you use Microsoft for business, not Microsoft for personal use. That's in Microsoft's terms of use. So that's a little bit about making sure you stay legal. And if you do that, you're fine. It doesn't have to be something that's scary or prevents you from creating these resources. Okay, let's get into the table. So I'm going to go to insert table, and I actually did this in 3 different tables, but you can join these together if you want. I had issues sometimes where my students would say, do I paste it below or above? So that's why I started separating these into 2 different tables, just so it's clear, like this space goes with this one. So I'm going to insert a table that is 4 by 2, and then I'm going to format it a little bit. And once you format the first one, then we can just duplicate it for the second one. So I'm going to kind of drag it over here and drag it out. I'm going to drag this middle line down. I'm just going to click and drag. You can also highlight and go to table layout, and you can use these little arrows to make it bigger or smaller. That is typically easier for me. So table layout, adjust the rows and columns here. And then I want to make this row with no fill. And then I want to make this row have a light gray fill, or you can use whatever color you want. And then I do want to see all the borders. Okay, and then the other thing I'm going to do before I duplicate it is I'm going to adjust the font for everything. So I'm going to highlight all the cells. You can also click into one cell and on your keyboard, hit Command A, or if you're on a PC, Control A, and that will highlight everything for you. And I'm going to go ahead and adjust all of the fonts at one time and make sure that all the fonts are black And then I'm going to make this 14. I think that should be good. And then I'm just tabbing over to get to the next cell. Now I'm going to duplicate and just leave a little space, should be good. Again, if you're preschool or even kindergarten, first grade, and you don't want to have 8 different things, then you can just leave it at 4. And in that case, you wouldn't need the separate one. You would just make this one bigger. And then the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to make a table for the answers that they're going to cut out. So I'm just going to duplicate that table and I'm going to make it smaller, and I'm going to drag it down here, delete all that. I'm going to highlight it, and then I'm going to make the rows the same size. Let's see, it's a little bit too big. That should be good. And then I'm going to make it all no fill, and then I'm going to make the borders dashed so that they know to make all of them dashed. When you click dash, nothing's going to happen. So you need to click borders and all borders again, and then it'll change to dashed. That took me way too long to figure out when I was first starting this. Now, all you have to do is add in your questions up at the top and then your 8 answers at the bottom. And then I would also highly encourage you to add your copyright. And this is how you add your copyright. Let me zoom in. So I'm going to open a text box and I'm going to type open parentheses, capital C, lower or close parentheses. That will change it to a copyright symbol. And then my first and last name, comma, year. Now, your copyright just tells people, hey, this is my resource. I created this. This is not for you to steal. This is my intellectual, or not even intellectual property. This is my digital property. Okay, I just realized that I had my screen too zoomed in and I need to move this down. We got even more room than I realized. So let me move this down and stretch this out a little bit. Let's see. Now they're not the same size and that's gonna drive me nuts. Okay, quick fix for that. Actually, even quicker. Delete that, reduplicate, just redo the numbers. See, even when you mess up, it's so fast. Okay, so let's talk about the actual content, because I know you're thinking, okay, well, how do I know what I can and cannot put in my resource? How do I know what's trademarked and copyrighted? So first of all, trademarks are for names of businesses, for names of characters in movies. Like Harry Potter is trademarked. Disney is trademarked. So it's very easy to look up trademarks. There is a trademark database, but I would just steer clear of any popular thing like Harry Potter or Disney if you're going to sell. Even if you're not going to sell, honestly, I would just be super careful because they come after people, okay? You don't want to include anything that's trademarked in your resource. But typically what I see people asking about is copyrighted material. So anything that anyone creates is technically copyrighted. If you were to get into a legal issue, then you would need to register your copyright with the US. Now, this is in the US. Outside of the US, each country has their own laws, okay? So you would need to look up the laws in your country. But you would register your copyright with the US Copyright Office, and then you could, send a cease and desist letter. You can actually do that even if your copyright isn't registered. But if you're going to go to court for this, by the way, I've never heard of anyone having to go to court over their teacher resources. But if that were to happen, then you would register your copyright and then go from there. Now, how to know if things are copyrighted? Well, you can't just copy questions from a textbook. You can't copy questions that you find online. You need to make up your own, create your own questions. Now, you are a teacher. If you are creating resources, I imagine, or you have some type of background in education, a tutor, homeschool mom, so you know the content. So you just need to create content around what you know. So for example, when I'm creating resources like this for math, I just make up these equations. Now, are these equations in textbooks? Yes, but it doesn't look exactly like this. I didn't copy these questions from one page of a textbook. I just made up these numbers as I was going. Now, when it comes to like words and definitions and things like that, it's fine to get definitions from the dictionary. I actually got these definitions from ChatGPT, so I don't even know if they're right. Side note, if you use ChatGPT or AI to create your resources, you do have to disclose that when you list it on TPT. You can just make a little page about your credits and you can just say this resource was made in conjunction with ChatGPT. You wouldn't want to copy word for word, mainly because ChatGPT or other AI tools are not always correct, but that's where I got these from. Vocabulary definitions typically aren't copyrightable because it's common knowledge, right? So things that are common knowledge are fine. Clip art and pictures. So these are actually directly from the PowerPoint program. And so that's fine because I have the business level of PowerPoint and of Microsoft 365. Let me just show you how I got these. I went to insert icons and I just searched search these icons, and those are fine. And then I just change the color of them. Now, if you want clip art, I highly recommend getting clip art from Teachers Pay Teachers. This obviously doesn't look that great, okay, for clip art. So if I was going to sell a preschool activity, don't just throw up random, not professional looking things, okay? I would not charge for this. But if I had purchased really nice looking preschool looking clip art, then this would be perfectly fine. I'm not a preschool seller, so I didn't purchase that clip art. But if you sell for preschool or you're a preschool teacher, then look on teacherspayteachers.com. Just search shapes or food clip art. And usually I recommend people find one artist and they buy all their clip art if possible from that one artist. So all of your resources have that same look and feel. And yeah, like this is all common knowledge. So this, what you are copywriting isn't the actual content, it's the layout, how you have everything laid out, how you put all of the words here and you laid it out nice and neat. That is what you are copywriting. Again, this is clip art images that I purchased, or I actually got these for free, but they were free for commercial use. You can find things like that, especially for upper grades that are free for commercial use. And I think this looks fine. And I think it's actually better maybe for upper grades to have an actual picture versus clip art. That's up to you though. But don't be too afraid of copyrights and trademarks. Do your due diligence. You can't just put anything on there. Let's talk about books. So if you are going to be doing literature, published works, I would reach out to the publisher and ask what you can and cannot do, because each publisher is different and you always want to ask. You don't want to just assume that you can use things from a book, like quotes and things like that. You just want to be careful with that. Now, if you're just describing a character from a book and that character isn't trademarked, then that should be fine. Like this character, lives in this town and does this thing, and then they match that character. That should be fine. But if you're taking actual content from the book, be careful with that. If you're using the cover of a book, just make sure that that is okay. Get permission first. Okay, so that's pretty much it. That was a lot of info in one video, but now you know how to quickly create a simple activity that you can give to your students. They can cut and paste, but remember I gave you other options as well. If you're like, I am not getting glue anywhere near my children, totally get that. And hey, I have another training that goes over a different type of resource, mazes, which is a great self-checking activity that my students always loved. You can find that link in the description below and check out my other videos. I have tons of other ideas for Teachers Pay Teachers and other types of digital products. And I hope that you subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss anything. I'll see you in the next video.